Hi guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this week's ukulele lesson, we're going to be learning finger-picking etude number 25, which I'm calling Morning Dew. So the idea behind writing this tune was to write something that sounded like waking up on a Saturday when you have nothing to do and you have just a very slow start to your day, to your morning, and you just want to take in all the sounds of the birds chirping outside and just that feeling of relaxation and having that slow start to your day, which doesn't happen every weekend. Let's be real, but when it does, it's quite a beautiful thing. So that was the imagery that I was trying to go for with the sound of this piece. So I hope you dug it. But from an etude perspective, this is a really great song for the beginner player because it's going to work on a few techniques. It's going to work on hammer-ons, pull-offs, and slides, but it also works on a concept, and the concept is rubato. Now, if you're new to those techniques, we taught them all in depth, the mechanics behind performing all of them, in our beginners course, so you can check out that. That course has 25 lessons that take you from how to hold the ukulele to playing your first song. So if you're a brand new beginner, that's where you want to start. This piece is more so intended for the beginner that's been playing for a little bit and has these kind of ideas and concepts and techniques under your fingertips, but you want to put it into use. You want to play a song that uses it, but also a song that sounds fun. So the other thing is the concept. Now, rubato, that simply means that you're not strictly adhering to the tempo. So every time we play music, we have to think about what the piece that we're playing is. There are some songs that we have to be perfectly in time, kind of like, I don't want to call it a robot, right? But we want to be perfectly in time with the metronome. But then there's some songs that have a little bit of looseness and free flow. And it's kind of like having a conversation. Sometimes when the conversation gets heated, you talk a little bit faster, and sometimes when it slows down, you might talk a little bit slower. So we want to kind of take that idea and put it into playing music. And so that's what rubato is. We don't have to play everything perfectly in time, and we can use a bit of rubato in this tune to give us that natural sound. So if you're new to rubato, check out this live lesson that Matt did, where he goes super in-depth into it. I'll put these links in the description box below, but we'll move forward throughout this lesson with the assumption that you know how to do the mechanics for the techniques and you have a general overview and understanding of what rubato is. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about this lesson. So in this video, we're going to be learning the entire etude. Now, if you want to get the tabs to print off and follow along with, that will be available at this link right here, or you can go to the site rockclass101.com, do a search for fingerpicking etude 25, or you can type Morning Dew. Either one will pull it up. And also on that page will be the on-screen tab viewer. Now, this is a really cool feature where you can hit play, you can watch the tab scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed you wish. Just a great asset in learning this song that much easier. All right, so let's go ahead and kick into learning this. So there's a few things that we want to talk about. The first one, this is for low G. So you got to grab the low G so we can get those low pitched notes. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is our right hand approach for finger picking. There's a few options that we can employ. The first one is, if we want to focus mainly on our left hand, because our left hand's doing all the work in this tune, then I would suggest using just your thumb to play everything, which would look a little bit like this. Okay, so your thumb would play all four strings, use the thumb for everything in this etude. Or you could try a four-finger approach, where each finger gets its own string. Or you could try a three-finger approach where your thumb would get string 4 and 3, index would get string 2, middle would get string 1. Either of those work, so I'll leave it up to you on which one you feel most comfortable using. But again, I think the main focus is what our left hand's doing in terms of all those techniques that I had mentioned. Now, let's go ahead and kick into learning the first part. We're starting with melody A, and what I'll do is I'll play the first couple bars, and that'll give us a good context of what it sounds like, this first phrase, and then we'll break it down and learn it. So here's what it sounds like. Okay, so the first thing is you just want to get that stuck in your head. Bum bum ba da 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 bum bum ba da ba da da. So it's very catchy, right? And what we're going to notice if we look at the rhythm hits here, this first measure, we have all eighth notes. So what you want to do is you want to keep everything perfectly steady. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... So every note lasts the same amount of time. That's what eighth note, keeping it all with eighth note rhythm means. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Okay? So let's break down what chord we're playing out of. We're starting with this G sus2. Now, if you know the basic G, I'm sure most of us know the basic G, you can make that G chord, lift your index finger up, put your middle where the index is. That gives us open, second, third, and open A. And that chord, you can hear the suspended chord, has a really cool sound to it. So this is the shape that we're going to be starting out of and playing out of. So keep the shape intact, and here's the one thing I want you to do. I want you to lift this ring finger up, okay? We don't need it for the very first start of this bar. So we're starting off this bar by playing the open G. Then we're going to play that third string, which is the middle finger fretted. Follow it up with the open E. And we're going to hammer on to the third fret with our ring finger. So there's our first little technique. So we have open, second, open, hammer. Okay? Now when you're doing hammer-ons or pull-offs, the goal is twofold. So you want to be able to cut down on the work of your right hand. So for example, let's get rid of this tab and stuff. So there's a little hammer-on lick. You can see that I'm plucking once, but I'm getting two notes out of it, right? So instead of me going pluck, 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 I can cut down the work on the right hand by plucking only once and getting two notes out of it. So pretty cool. Same thing if we do the opposite, the pull-off. Right? So that's the first goal of hammer-ons and pull-offs, is it cuts down the work of our right hand. But the second thing is that we really want the hammer-on and the pull-off to have the same volume as if it was a plucked note. So you listen to the volume level. So that's plucking, and if I hammer, you can see it's equal. Okay, so that's the other goal. So when you're working on these hammer-ons and pull-offs in this song, keep those ideas in mind. Cutting down the work of the right hand by plucking only once. But you're also matching that same volume that you would get if you were to pluck every note. So make sure that you're coming down or pulling off with enough pressure to get that same volume to ring out for the note. Okay, so going back to this first measure. So far we have open, second, open, hammer. The next note is the open A, and then I'm going to come back to this third fret. So watch my ring finger as I play through the first part. You can see that it stays down, it stays anchored, right? Because look at the next note. It's going to be the third fret on the open E. Sorry, third fret followed by the open E. So we have the opposite, right? We have the pull off. So when I'm playing through this, open, second, open, third, pull off, right? I want to keep that finger planted down after I do the hammer on. So that's very key. So let's see if we can try that together, guys. We're going to go open, second, open, hammer, A string, third fret, pull off. Okay, let's try that. 3, 4, open, second, open, hammer, open, third, pull off. Nice. Then you're going to end on the third string, second fret. So here's the other thing you notice. That middle finger stayed anchored as well throughout the entire measure. So keep that in mind too. So let's try the entire first bar. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So a little fast, right? Let's try a little bit slower. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Nice. Now here's the beauty. If we look at measure 2 and I play through it, you can see that it ends on the open E. And if you look at that open E, it's a quarter note. So we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay, so don't play the third string. So let's see if we can try that. We'll stop after that pull off. So 3 and 4 and. Nice. Now, here's the thing. Let's see if we can go 1 into 2. So here we go. 3, 4. Nice. Now, one of those hammer-ons in the first bar, I think I rushed just ever so slightly, and that brings up a really good point. Anytime you're doing these hammer-ons and pull-offs, sometimes we have a tendency to rush them, right? Because it kind of at the beginning when you're doing them, it almost feels like natural to go really fast with the hammer-on or really fast with the pull-off, but you really want to be cognitive to match that timing. So nice and steady. You don't want to do the hammer-on too fast or the pull-off too fast. Okay? So keep that in mind as you're working on that. Now, that's the first 2 bars. Here's the beauty. Those first 2 bars get repeated. So you're actually playing this for the first 4 bars. So that covers a big chunk of the first A melody. So 2 times through would sound like this. Again. Okay, so keep that in mind. You're playing it 2 times through. So 2 bars times 2 equals 4 bars. Now, as we go into the next measure, and if you're following with a tab, I'll keep the numbers up there. This is measure 3. Then we're going to be moving to a C major 7 chord. Now, this first little bar that we're playing out of C sounds very similar to the one that we just did out of G. Let me play it for you. Right? So it's very similar, just playing out of a C chord. So let's learn the chord that we're playing out of. So for this chord, what we're going to do is we're going to have the open C, we're going to have the middle finger on the 3rd fret of string 2, and the index finger on the 2nd fret of string 1. So for right now, we can ignore string 4, we don't need it. But as we saw with the G sus2, we're going to start with one finger lifted up. So I want you to lift the index finger up. So for this measure, what I want you guys to do is to play the 3rd string open, then the 2nd string, and then you're going to play the open A, follow it up with a hammer on, and a pull off. Okay? So we have a double whammy right here. So remember what I talked about with the 2-fold rule. You pluck 1 time, but you also want to be cognitive that the hammer-on and the pull-off have the exact same volume as if you were to pluck every note. Okay? So work on that. You can hit pause on the video and work on getting the volumes to match. Okay? Remember, pluck once, get the volumes to match. So with this one in mind, we're starting with the open C, playing the 2nd string, 3rd fret, hammer on, pull off. So O to O. So let's just try that. And rhythmically all 8ths, so keep it steady. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. Nice. Now, going back to the 2nd string, you're going to play that 3rd fret and pull off to the open E. And then I want you to end on the second fret of string 3 with the index finger. So all together, guys, you have okay, let's see if we can try that nice and slow. 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Nice. Now, as I go into our fourth measure, it's going to start the same for the most part, but then it's going to get a little bit tricky with what the left hand has to do. Here's what it sounds like. Let's listen one more time. So we have a crazy slide, right? So let's break down what's happening. The first half is pretty much the same as the previous measure. So we start with the open C, back to the third fret of string 2, open A, hammer. Don't pull off though. So that's where it deviates. So we have O3, O2, okay? And here's another tip for this measure. I would actually lift up the middle finger. Don't keep it anchored, because we have to have a little bit more freedom with our movement of our left hand for this slide that happens for the second half of the bar. So keep that in mind. So O3, open, and you can lift up, hammer. Let's try that. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and. Nice. So at this point, take that ring finger, put it on the 4th fret of the A string. I want you to slide to the 7th fret. Now, here's the thing with slides. When we're doing this technique, we want to keep pressure applied. So when I'm doing the slide, I'm not lifting pressure up, because if I do, you can hear the note would get cut and muted in a way. So keep finger pressure held down, but don't push too hard. If you push too hard, the note actually goes sharp. It's kind of interesting. So just push enough to get the note to ring out. But here's the other thing. You want to keep your eye on the prize. The prize is the 7th fret. So remember, most ukuleles have these fret markers. Now they're not only on the actual neck right here in the middle, they're actually up top as well. Now, unfortunately, every manufacturer doesn't make them uniform. Some start, like mine, with the first dot on the 3rd fret. Some start on the 5th fret. So take a look at what you got. But if I can memorize my dots, then I can navigate the neck so much easier. The first dot is 3. Second dot is the 5th fret. The next one is the 7th fret. The 4th dot is the 10th fret. And the double dot is the 12th fret. Okay, so if I memorize these dots, if I'm starting on 4, that means I'm starting the fret above the first dot, and I slide to the 3rd dot. So my eye can just stay on the prize right there. So I'm not watching my finger and moving my hand up until it gets to that 7th fret. Instead, I'm just keeping my eye on fret 7. So when I slide, I stop the finger when it meets the eye on the 7th fret. And it's really that simple. That's the easy way to do it. So don't watch your finger and do something like that. Keep your eye on the prize, that 3rd dot, and slide up to it. Keep finger pressure held down, and you'll get it sounding good. And the same concept too. We kind of want that volume to be equal, right? So all these techniques, we want the volume to be equal to what a pluck volume would sound like. Now the last thing I would say about this slide, it's a bit of a distance of a slide because we have a step and a half, right? Which is 1, 2, 3 frets. So when you're sliding, you want to have a nice smooth slide, and you don't want to have any kind of like stutter between the starting and the end goal. Okay? So I'll wait for this aeroplane to go by and I'll explain it more. So when I was teaching private lessons, I noticed that a lot of folks struggled with getting that smooth slide. So sometimes I would see them kind of hit a fret in between the goal, right? So for example, right there, I just hit the 6th fret before I finally got to the goal, which is the 7th fret. So I want you just to hit pause and just practice slow, going 4 to 7, and just getting that doo-doo, ba-da. You hear 2 notes, da-da, right? So just go really slow, like, right, before you try to go super fast or anything like that. But that is the key with sliding. So it's all those points that we covered: keeping finger pressure down, keeping your eye on the prize, and getting a nice slide that doesn't stop along the way at one of the frets in between the first and the goal. Okay? So keep all those points in mind. And again, if you need recaps on hammer-ons or the pull-off technique or any of that stuff, we did cover it in super detail in that beginner's course. So I'll put the link in the description box below. So with this in mind, we're sliding 4 to 7, and I want you to do a pull-off, and we're going to pull off to the 5th fret. So you're going to use your index finger. Okay, so I'm going 4 to 7, pull off with the ring finger to the index finger on the 5th fret, and then I'm going to pull off again to the open A string, and I'm finally going to hammer on to the 2nd fret of string 1. Okay, so this is a tricky little section. Now the other thing is, you want the rhythm to remain constant. So if you look at the tab up there, you can see that that 4 is in a little tiny number, right? That tiny number means that it's a grace note. And a grace note just adds a little bit of flourish. But the key thing here is that we want to keep the timing steady. If I play this entire measure, 1 and 2 and slide and 4 and, you can hear that I kept it all as 8th note rhythm, right? So don't feel like that 4 to 7 is some extra added length of time. It's not. Just 3 and 4 and, all steady 8th notes. Okay? So let's try just the second half. We'll start on beat 3. 1 and 2 and slide, pull off, open, 2nd. Okay, so slide, pull off, hammer. All right, so I'm plucking 1 time. Pluck, pull off, hammer. Let's try that. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Nice. If we put the measure together, here we go. 3 and 4 and. Awesome. If we backtrack, 3 into 4. 3 and 4 and. Cool. So now we're starting to get to a lot of this music intact. So here's the thing. At this point, you're going into measure 5 and 6, and these are going to be the ending of the A melody. And here's what it sounds like. Okay, so off the bat, if we look at the 5th measure, identical to the 1st measure. So let's skip over that. If we look at the 6th measure, almost all identical to the 2nd measure. The only thing that happens is the ending. So if you look at beat 4 end, so beat 4 and the end of 4, those are the 2 notes that are different, but look one before that, the end of 3. We're going to be doing a slide down followed by a pull off. So we have a little bit of a different hit starting on the end of 3. So go ahead and make the G+2 chord. The first part's the same, open, 2nd, open, hammer, A string. All that's identical to what you know. At this point, you're going to pluck the 3rd fret of string 2, and here's a little tricky. You're going to slide down, so keep the middle finger planted. We want to try to let that note ring out. And you're just going to slide down. So you can see even my hand kind of moves a little bit like that to make this possible. Okay, so 3, 2. At this point, put the index finger down on that 1st fret, same string, string 2, and do a pull off to that 1st fret. So you have 3, 2, pull off. So 3, 2, pull off. So you may want to hit pause on the video and just practice that. It's a little tricky because it's kind of jamming all your fingers into a little bit of a tight spot. 3, 2, pull off. Okay? So if I put that together and look at the rhythm again, straight up 8th notes. That's what we get. So let's see if we can try it together. 3 and 4 and. Nice. So that's going to conclude everything for our A melody. Now here's the thing. The A melody for this first time through is 8 bars. So I'm going to cycle through everything, and I'm going to just give you a context of what we've covered. So this is what everything sounds like for the A melody. Remember, the first 2 bars repeat. So it's really first 4 bars. Awesome. And that's going to take us into melody B. So as we go into melody B, the first thing that I want to point out is that it's only 4 bars in length. So it's half the length of that A melody. Now the next thing I want to point out is that it's going to have that concept that we talked about. We're going to be introducing the rubato into this section. So again, that means that we don't have to play perfectly in time. So let me play these 4 bars for you, and I want you just to listen to how I'll just slow down and deviate from that steady rhythm about midway through. And I also want you just to take note of the length. So it's half the length, only 4 bars. So here's what it sounds like. Okay, so we can hear that we're starting out nice and steady. So the first 2 bars nice and steady. As we get to the 3rd bar, we can start to do a bit of that rubato mixed with a little bit of a ritardando at the end. So we can start to ignore that timing. We don't have to go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Right, so the 3rd measure kicks us into a rubato. The 4th measure adds a ritardando. So let's talk about that once we get to there. But we'll start with the 7th measure, so the first bar for this B melody. So the chord, we all know and love, it's that staircase E minor shape. So let's go ahead and make the fingering for this one. And with this chord in mind, we're just going to be plucking out of it. So we have 3rd string, 2nd string, lift the index finger, and then put it back down. So you have 4, 3, open A, 2nd. So kind of like that same concept we saw in the A melody, where we have 1 finger up before we put it back down. So we're seeing a lot of repetition in that regard. So 3, 2, open A, 2nd fret. Now here's where it gets a little tricky. You're going to flip-flop these 2 fingers. So your ring finger goes where the middle finger was, and your middle finger goes above it. So you have 3, 3, 2. And again, we're still ignoring string number 4. So this gives us a minor major 7. Really cool sound. And we're going to be doing the exact same thing we did for the E minor. 3, 2, open A, 2nd fret. Okay? And again, if you look at the rhythm, all 8ths. So we're keeping this first bar steady. Now watch this transition. You can see that I'm not going together in unison to grab everything in time. Instead, watch what happens. 3, 2, open, second, middle comes up, pluck the note. Ring goes down, pluck the note, open, second. So again, more in real time. So I'm adding the finger as the music calls for it, right? So this is a really, really big breakthrough tip in making your playing for your left hand very efficient. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So to make your playing efficient, we don't have to make the full chord at the get-go on beat 3, right? We only have to add the middle finger, and then after that, add the ring finger. So that's going to make it so much easier to do the chord transition. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay? So don't make the left hand harder than it has to be. That's another way to put it. So let's see if we can try that bar together. 3 and 4 and. Nice. Now, we're going to a basic G chord, but in the context of this song, it's an E minor 7, okay? But in essence, to make the transition, guys, again, flip-flopping, we're going to flip-flop 1 and 2 this time. So that means that middle finger goes where the index was, and the index finger goes onto that second fret of string 3. And you know the shape, it's the basic G, okay? And for this measure, it's going to start out just the same as the other one. So 3, 2, open A, second fret. Okay? So you may want to just practice this first, second, third as a little phrase because it's just a continuation. And you can see the only thing that changes is that bass note goes down, walks down by a half step. So let's see if we can try that. Let's go from the 7th into the first half of the 8th measure. 3 and 4 and. Nice. Now here's where it gets tricky. Let me play this 8th measure for you. Okay, first thing, steady 8th notes, right? Second thing, we have a big slide with the middle finger. So keep in mind where you left off. 3, 2, open, second. At this point, you're going to lift these 2 fingers up and you're going to slide that middle finger from 2nd to 7th fret. So again, all those things that we talked about with slides in the previous section, they ring true for this. Keep your eye on the prize. So keep your eye on 7. Slide your middle finger till it gets there, keep finger pressure held down, and then try to achieve a nice even slide from start to ending note. Nothing in between, okay? So keep all those in mind, 2 to 7. So you may want to just hit pause and practice 2 to 7. But when you get up to 7, you're going to do a pull off. It's a bit of a stretch, okay? But you're going to pull off to the 5th fret on the A string. So here's the other thing that you may want to practice. You may want to go 2 to 7 and then pull off to 5. Slide 5. So you can just practice that. Okay, when you get comfortable with that, take the pinky, put it on 8 on string 2, and the ring goes to 7 on string 2. Slide 5, 8, 7. Okay, so let's see if we can try that. Start on beat 3. 1 and 2 and slide 5, 8, 7. Okay, so if we put it together, start at the top of that bar. So 3 and 4 and. That's what we end up with. Really cool measure. Very tricky though. And if we put those 2 together, so 7 into 8, sounds like this. 3 and 4 and. really cool stuff. Now, as we go into the next couple measures, this is where we introduce rubato. So before we talk about the rubato, let's just learn the measure while keeping the rhythms intact. And then we'll talk about how to implement that rubato to get that natural feel to our playing. So the first chord we're playing out of, most of us probably know, it's an A7, just the index on the first fret of string 3. Everything else is open. So we're going to strum that chord, then grab the third string, first fret, then play the open A, and then followed up by the second fret of the A string. So strum 3, open A, second fret of the A string. So all eighths, 1 and 2, and then we have quarter notes to finish it up, open A, and I would probably use the pinky to grab the third fret of string 2. So strum 3, open, second, open, 3. Okay, so not a hard measure by any means, much easier than the previous one. But let's try that keeping timing steady. 3 and 4 and. Okay, and let's do this. Let's add the 10th measure in, and then we'll talk about the rubato and the ritardando. So from here, for the 10th measure, we're going to go to a D chord, but we're going to make it a little bit easier. Instead of doing the 4th string, we don't need that note at all. So we're just going to use the middle and the ring finger. So middle is on the 3rd string, 2nd fret, ring is underneath it, 2nd string. And you're going to just pluck those two. And then I want you to use the pinky for the 3rd fret on string 2, and then slide up to 5. So you're going to go pluck, pluck, pluck and slide. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So all together, if I play 9 and 10 with steady timing, sounds like that. Okay? Let's you and I try. 3, 4. Okay, but here's the thing. If we play this, let me play melody B with keeping it steady. You can hear it sounds very robotic, right? Now, let me play it again with putting in that rubato and a ritardando. So I'm going to start rubato on 9, ritardando on 10, but I'm keeping 7 and 8 steady. It sounds so much more musical, sounds so much more feeling, so much more alive, right? Because it's not so steady and so, robotic, right? I can't think of a better word than that. So what am I doing and how is it sounding so cool? Well, when I get to that A7, that's going to be the start of adding that rubato. So at this point, I just want to be loose with my timing. So I have la da 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 ba da ba da ba da ba da 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 la da 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 slow da bum. So there's the key. Instead of playing it, I want you to sing it. And if you're too shy to sing it out loud, that's cool. I taught students for 11 years one-on-one, and let me tell you, 9 out of 10 never wanted to sing in front of me. Do it in your head. But you gotta get it, you gotta hear it at that slower pace. So keep it steady. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and da da da. Slow dum ba. Right, so you gotta hear that music. You gotta sing this as an entire phrase, the B melody in its entirety. Do do da da do do da da do do da 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 dum ba da da do. Slow, slow, slow. So the thing is that when you get to 9, just slow down. And then when you get to 10, really emphasize a ritardando. Very, very slow ritardando. 1, 2, 3, Okay? So retardando is like coming to a stoplight, right? When you're driving, the light turns yellow, you start to gradually hit the brakes till you come to a stop at red. It's the same concept, right? We don't want to go, right? We don't want to slam on the brakes when it turns yellow. We want to gradually slow down. So that's the trick with it. So just memorize that, get that out, sing that, get that feel down, and that's really the key with getting that rubato sound, okay? So that's everything for the B melody, guys. And I want you just to practice it on your own. So just hit pause and practice it. Try to get that feel down and take it and make it your own too. If you hear it a different way in your head, you want to do less rubato or less retardando, it's cool. Take it and make it your own as well. Now, at this point, you're going to go back into the A melody, but it's a shortened version. You're only going to play 4 bars. And here's what it sounds like. So the first thing we notice is that it's identical. So those first 2 bars, they're identical to what you did for bar 1 and 2. At this point, you're going to repeat, you're going to play this 11th bar one more time. Okay, and then it goes into ending number 2, which sounds like this. Okay, so it's a really cool transition into a minor sound. So we're playing out of a G minor, and that's what gives it kind of that different tonality, different coloring. So we're going to start with the open G, and I want you to take the ring finger, put it on the 7th fret of the A string, and put your index finger onto the 5th fret. So you're going to do a pull off, 7 to 5. So open, 7, 5, then take the middle finger, put it on 6 on string 2, lift the index finger up, play the open A. That's going to buy you time to move that middle finger down to the 3rd fret of string 2. Okay, so let's recap. That's quite a lot of things that are happening. Open, 7, pulls off to 5, 6 with the middle finger on string 2, open A, buys you time to move the middle down to the 3rd fret. So let's just try that. 3 and 4 and 1. Nice. Now at this point, you're going to pluck the open E, then go to the 2nd fret of the 3rd string. Okay, so that's going to finish that up. So you have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... So let's see if we can try that. So 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Okay, so one more time, 3 and 4 and 7, 5, 6, open 3, open 2. So another thing you can do too is you can call out those hits. 7, 5, 6, open 3, 2. That's another good way to memorize, especially when you have such movement like this. Okay, so last time, 3 and 4 and... Okay, you can also notice that I put a retardando here, so you can do again another little retardando since this is the ending of our tune. But to end it, you're going to basically play a G minor, and we're just going to lay flat partial bar on the 10th fret, strings 1, 2, and 3. The G string is open, and just a slow strum down, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, now with these partial bars, the key is not just getting what's happening in front of the neck down, but it's also paying attention to what's happening behind the neck. So you see this U-shaped gap, my thumb is placed slightly above the middle of the neck. And so if you need a recap on proper left hand form, and again, what's happening in front, but also behind the neck, all of that is covered in complete detail in this lesson. If I ran out of cards, I'll put a link in the description box below, but it's our lesson on proper left hand form. And that lesson is actually included in the beginner's course as well. But it's going to teach you everything you need to know for getting partial bar chords, full bar chords, and even these basic chords if you need a recap on left hand form for any of these cowboy chords, any of these basic chord shapes, that lesson will cover that as well. But yeah, so we're going to end on this nice slow, kind of an arpeggiated strum, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I play that measure together with the ritardando. Sounds like that. So if I play this entire little A melody to end it, remember 4 bars. That's what we end up with. So a really cool ending to this tune. So guys, that's going to be everything for this lesson. So again, we learned the A melody, which was 8 bars, went into the B melody, which was 4 bars, and then back into a shortened version of the A melody, which was 4 bars, with that cool little minor sounding ending. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this. This was a great lesson for the beginner. It taught good use of hammer-ons, good use of pull-offs, good use of slides, and introduced that concept of using rubato and even the ritardandos in your playing. So a lot of useful techniques and concepts, perfect for the beginner player. And packaging it into something that sounds cool, that's always the hardest thing. So I know I was a beginner one time, and one of the hardest things was to find music that sounded great at that level. And so every time I try to write a beginner piece, that's always my goal, is to make it sound as cool and as fun as possible. So hopefully you enjoyed this one. I had a lot of fun writing it, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed this lesson. Now, I do want to remind you, if you want to get the tabs to just print, keep for your records, that was available at this link, or you can go to the site, rockclass101.com, do a search for fingerpicking etude number 25, or you can type Morning Dew. It'll pop up either way. And don't forget too, on that page is the really cool interactive tab player, so you can hit play, you can watch the tab scroll across in real time, highlight bars, loop section, slow it down, all that fun jazz. Great for learning this tune. And yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.